In recent years, the rise of Donald Trump has been one of the most polarizing political stories in modern history. From his controversial campaign in 2016 to his term in office and beyond, Trump has stirred up intense debates around various issues, including race, immigration, and identity. One of the deeper, often overlooked aspects of this conversation, however, is colorism. The prejudiced treatment of individuals based on the shade of their skin, particularly within the context of race. To understand the connection between Donald Trump's rise and colorism, we need to first recognize what colorism is. While racism often refers to discrimination based on race, colorism deals more specifically with discrimination based on skin tone. People with lighter skin tones are often given privileges, while those with darker skin tones face disadvantages, even within their own racial or ethnic groups. In many cases, colorism is a form of internalized bias, where individuals perpetuate discriminatory views about their own race, based on Eurocentric standards of beauty. Trump's rise is a reflection of several complex social and political factors that have shaped American society, but colorism plays a critical role in understanding how and why his supporters, many of whom are from diverse backgrounds, continue to rally behind him. To fully grasp this phenomenon, we need to explore how Trump's own rhetoric, image, and policies have interacted with the broader racial and cultural landscape in America. First, let's take a look at Trump's approach to race throughout his public life, from his early business career to his time in politics. Donald Trump's relationship with race has been widely scrutinized, from his early days in the real estate business to his time in the White House. One of the most notable instances that set the tone for Trump's racial politics came in 1973, when the U.S. Department of Justice filed a lawsuit against him and his father, Fred Trump, for racial discrimination in their real estate properties. The lawsuit accused the Trumps of refusing to rent to black tenants in their buildings, an allegation they denied, but eventually settled without admitting guilt. Throughout the years, Trump has made numerous controversial statements that have raised questions about his views on race. During the 2016 campaign, he famously referred to Mexican immigrants as rapists and criminals, which drew widespread condemnation from many communities. He also made derogatory comments about various minority groups, including Muslims, black people, and immigrants. These comments seemed to strike a chord with a segment of the American population that felt alienated or threatened by the changing demographics of the country. However, beyond these inflammatory remarks, Trump's policies also disproportionately impacted marginalized communities. His administration's stance on immigration, its rollback of civil rights protections, and its response to police brutality protests were seen as harmful to people of color. Trump's so-called law and order rhetoric, which he used frequently during his presidency, was seen by many as a thinly veiled appeal to a nostalgic, racially conservative America, one that sought to maintain the status quo and resist the growing calls for racial equality. But the rise of Trump was not just about racial animosity. It was also about an appeal to certain social and cultural dynamics that resonate deeply within communities that often deal with internalized colorism. While Trump's policies and statements were certainly divisive, the way he presented himself and his brand also played a significant role in his appeal. The Trump brand, both as a businessman and a political figure, has always been built on the idea of wealth, success, and status. His public persona has often been associated with luxury and opulence, golden buildings, expensive cars, lavish hotels, and designer suits. Trump's image has been one of the elite, and this image often intersects with notions of whiteness, privilege, and Eurocentric standards of beauty. In a society that frequently elevates lighter skin tones as the standard of success and beauty, Trump's own appearance, his light skin, blonde hair, and overall Eurocentric features has positioned him as an aspirational figure for many of his supporters. For some, Trump represents the embodiment of the American dream, a vision of wealth and power that feels within reach. His image, carefully curated and marketed, played a significant role in attracting support from individuals who may not have fully embraced his controversial policies, but were drawn to the idea of being associated with success and wealth. This connection between Trump's image and colorism is crucial. In many ways, his rise can be understood as a manifestation of how colorism operates on a larger scale. Lighter skin is often associated with higher status, and Trump, with his carefully cultivated public persona, tapped into that deeply ingrained societal belief. For some of his supporters, his skin tone and appearance became a symbol of the success they aspired to, especially in a country where colorism often plays a significant role in determining opportunities, access to resources, and social mobility. Moreover, Trump's ability to appeal to voters who had been historically disenfranchised or left behind by traditional political establishments cannot be overlooked. Many of his supporters were from working-class backgrounds, and for them, Trump represented a kind of bold defiance against the establishment, even if his rhetoric and policies didn't directly address their economic or social struggles. In this way, Trump's appeal to race and identity was not just about overtly racist rhetoric, but about a more insidious form of colorism, one that resonated with people who saw his light skin and wealth as markers of success and power. One of the most interesting aspects of the Trump phenomenon is how it reveals the intersection of colorism and political identity. Within communities of color, colorism often manifests in complex ways. For example, within the Black community, lighter-skinned individuals have historically had more access to privilege, while darker-skinned individuals faced greater challenges, both socially and economically. This divide is not just limited to the Black community, but can be found across various racial and ethnic groups. In Latinx communities, for instance, colorism plays a significant role in shaping identity, with lighter-skinned individuals often seen as more acceptable or mainstream than their darker-skinned counterparts. Trump's rise is a reflection of how these dynamics play out on a broader political scale. Many of his supporters, particularly from Latino and Black communities, may not have identified with his racially charged rhetoric, but still felt a kinship with the idea of upward mobility, success, and the cultural capital associated with lighter skin. For some, Trump's embrace of wealth, power, and success resonated more than his divisive views on race. This is not to say that his supporters were necessarily motivated by colorism alone, but it highlights the complex ways in which race and identity intersect with political choices. Another key factor in Trump's rise, particularly in relation to colorism, is the role of media and cultural narratives in shaping perceptions of race and success. The media often plays a crucial role in reinforcing colorist standards by perpetuating images of lighter-skinned individuals as successful, beautiful, and desirable. Trump's prominence in the media, his constant appearance in tabloids, reality television, and business magazines, all helped reinforce the narrative that lighter-skinned, wealthy individuals were the ideal. This media saturation helped normalize Trump's image as a powerful and aspirational figure, and in doing so, it indirectly reinforced colorist ideals. The constant exposure to Trump's brand, both through his media presence and his larger-than-life persona, helped create a cultural climate where his rise made sense, especially for those who bought into the idea that wealth, success, and lighter skin were indicators of superiority. As we reflect on the rise of Donald Trump and its connection to colorism, we have to recognize that the conversation around race, identity, and privilege is far from over. Trump's presidency brought issues of race and identity to the forefront of American politics, and his impact is still being felt in political discourse today. The persistence of colorism, especially within communities of color, will continue to shape how Americans view themselves and each other. As we move forward, it's important to confront these biases head-on and recognize how they continue to influence political choices and societal structures. Understanding the intersection of colorism and Trump's rise gives us valuable insight into the complexities of race, identity, and power in America. In the end, the rise of Trump is not just a story about a controversial political figure. It's also a story about how colorism shapes our perceptions of success, beauty, and worth. As the conversation around race continues to evolve, it's crucial that we recognize the subtle ways in which colorism persists and work toward a more inclusive and equitable society for all, regardless of skin tone.